book.
Where are you going with your students?
Yeah.
Come back.
All right, LB, you ready to go?
Yes, Mayor, we're ready.
Thank you. Welcome to our October 13, 2020 regular city council meeting. I will now call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. For the audience tonight, I'm the mayor in service presiding officer for tonight's meeting. Tonight's public meeting will be conducted utilizing Zoom video communications. This allows the city to continue to conduct essential business and comply with public health administration recommendations to protect the public and city employees to practice social distancing and limit exposure by not allowing in-person meetings. To ensure that the public will be able to participate in our meeting, public comments can be submitted as live comments during the Zoom meeting and via email at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. Brief lineup tonight is 3 special items: breast cancer proclamation, COVID-19 update, and a special resolution. 7 items under consent calendar, 2 unfinished business, our strategic plan presentation, and a short-term rental ordinance. And the last item would be new business for a proposed coyote management plan. I hope that everyone is finding Minute with the Mayor videos helpful. Through our daily travels through the city, we listen to your concerns and try to address them in our videos. If there are topics of interest that you would like for us to share, please send those questions to mayor@cityofglendora.org to better help us communicate with you. Madam Deputy City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each council member respond with present when their name is called. Councilmember Thompson,
Present.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Present.
Councilmember Boyer,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Present.
and Mayor Alawas.
Present.
All council members are present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. And now we'll have an invocation by Pastor John Dix of Grace Church of Glendora.
There we go. Let's pray together. God, we're grateful for the freedom that you give us to meet and to think and to consider the welfare of our city and our state and our country. I'm especially thankful, God, for the men and women on our city council and for our staff of our city. I pray, God, tonight that you would show your favor on each and every one of them. Give them the wisdom of Solomon to be kind and compassionate, and yet to make decisions that reflect justice and the things that we value so greatly in this city. God, we pray for creative solutions to very complex problems. We know that you care deeply about each and every issue that's on the agenda tonight because you care deeply about us. And so give each and every speaker a sense of calmness and confidence that our council has the best interest of our community in mind. And God, I pray for a special blessing on every decision maker, that you would give them a sense of confidence that you have placed them in this position to help lead us forward in some very challenging times. We do love you, God, and we pray that your love for us would drive us to love our neighbor in even greater and more deeper ways. In the powerful name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Dix. And to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance is Sergeant Shauna Salillo.
Hi there. If everybody could go ahead and stand up, please, and face whatever flag is nearest to you, whichever American flag is nearest to you. Go ahead and place your right hand over your heart and follow after me. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, Sergeant Salillo.
You're welcome.
So this brings us now to our first special item, proclamation recognizing October 2020 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'd like to invite Mayor Pro Tem Karen Davis to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our proclamation for this month, whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas early detection greatly improves the chances for successful treatment and survival. Mammography is the best available method of detecting abnormalities, which may be cancer, long before physical symptoms can be seen or felt. And whereas the Glendora Police Department has participated in the Pink Patch Project for the past 5 years in support of organizations that provide education and bring breast cancer awareness to the community. And whereas the Glendora Police Department's Pink Patch Project has raised money by selling customized pink patches and other apparel, they have held fundraisers at restaurants and coffee shops, accepting donations and tips, and raised over $28,000, which has been donated to the City of Hope. And whereas we proudly support studies aimed at discovering better screening methods, developing more effective treatments, and improving our understanding of this disease. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Glendora, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2020 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Glendora. We further appreciate the coordinators and supporters of the Pink Patch Project who help promote programs that bring awareness about breast cancer and the importance of consulting with healthcare providers about regular checkups and mammograms. And witness whereof, the mayor has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Glendora to be affixed this 13th day of October, 2020. And I'd like to hand it off to Sergeant Salillo, who is one of those promoters and organizers for the Pink Patch Project, to offer a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Davis. I'd like to take a minute to say thank you to our City Council, Mayor Alawas, Mr. Raymond, and Chief Egan for supporting us in this project. For those of you that don't know about the Pink Patch Project, it started in 2013 when Seal Beach Police Department turned their patches, their shoulder patches, pink for the month of October. They didn't do it as a fundraiser, they did it to honor one of their own. And it was a huge success with 100% of their department turning their patches pink for that month. Well, in 2016, then Irwindale Chief Tony Miranda, he took the idea to the LA County Chiefs of Police, and he wanted to see how many LA County police departments, LA County agencies could turn their patches pink as a fundraiser for whichever cancer nonprofit they chose to donate their money to. So beginning in 2016 is when the Glendora Police Department signed up. We have done this now every year for the past 5 years. Just a few statistics to date, we're in our 5th year, but there are now over 500 agencies that participate in the Pink Patch Project, and not only from California and not even only from America. We have agencies from Canada, Spain, and France that also participate. Collectively, over 900,000 patches have been sold and over $1.4 million has been raised. The Glendora Police Department has our patches for sale this year. You can see on my shoulder, I think Chief Egan is wearing his as well today. These are our 2020 limited edition Glendora PD pink patches. They are available in our lobby of the front lobby of our police station. They are $10 each, and all of the money that we earn will go to our charity of choice, which will be City of Hope again this year. We really appreciate everybody's support, and come on out and buy your patch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sergeant. So this brings us to our item number 2 on special items is COVID-19 reopening and economic update. I'd like to invite our City Manager, Adam Raymond, to present.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you very much for the introduction. Today marks our 6-month progress in terms of providing these updates. While the COVID-19 pandemic has lasted longer than that, we've tried to provide detailed items on the economic reopening now for going on 6 months. Next slide, please. So if you ever wondered how exactly we were here, you can go back to the special program or special items in all the council meetings dating back to April 28th and sort of see the evolution on how we arrived to the current presentation tonight and what's allowed to operate and what is still not allowed to operate. Next slide, please. So it's pretty well known the state has moved from a Resilience California to a program called Blueprint for a Safer Economy, which is a color coordinated effort that decisions made to move from step to step are based on key metrics. Most in summary fashion would be infection rate per 100,000 and the positivity rate of tests. Next slide, please. So the earliest, and there is no green stage at the state level. There's no freedom to return to life as before we knew COVID-19. The current system only goes to yellow based on a minimum of 3 weeks in each stage in 2 consecutive weeks of meeting the criteria to move. The earliest Los Angeles County could arrive at the yellow stage would be in early December. These statistics provided by the state are updated every Tuesday, and they represent the preceding week's statistics. And with that, we'll go to the next page. State of California, the last 2 weeks has made a slight change to their metrics. You will see on the right-hand side of your screen, the positivity rate now is bifurcated, both an overall positivity rate and then a positivity rate for certain clusters of individuals, from essential workers to various socioeconomic status and various demographic groups. So you both have a overall positivity rate and now something called a health equity metric. The colors still stay the same. Currently, the County of Los Angeles is in the top tier there in purple. We have the hardest area trying to meet the 7 new infections per 100,000 and under. And as other major counties around us have moved, Los Angeles County has not been able to drive down that number. So a little more on what this means. We'll go to the next slide. So one of the new metrics is this California Healthy Places Index, and I won't read everything on the screen, but essentially the state decided that before a county can reopen or have to move backwards, it needs to ensure that those most at risk are being tested for and taken care of. According to 25 individual indicators across multiple different fronts, you cannot have a positivity rate on certain sectors that basically meet certain criteria. So for example, the state based their decision to move in this direction on the fact that the lowest quartile or the lowest 25% of certain categories of individuals in the state of California, while representing only 24% of the population, account for 40% of the COVID cases. Income and various essential workers also fall into this category of the lowest quartile on the Healthy Places Index. So if we go to the next slide, please. As we mentioned earlier, overall positivity rate and new infections per 100,000 have been the metric since we moved to this new system about a month and a half ago. In order to move tiers from purple to red, we need to ensure those people within the Los Angeles County that fall into the lowest quartile of the HPI census tracts must not have a positivity rate of greater than 8%. The orange tier must not have a positivity rate of greater or equal to 5.2%. And then also to be in the yellow tier, it has to be less than or equal to 2.1%. And so for how California and the County of Los Angeles qualifies, we'll go to the next slide. This week marks the first change where it's sort of an expanded look at the county map. So when you click on Los Angeles County, we are still in the purple tier, and it has down the weeks below for the time we've been doing this assessment since September 12th. We have been in the purple tier all along. 9 new cases per 100,000 is sort of the gross data, but because we do so much testing, there's an adjustment. That adjustment is 7.6 new case rates per 100,000. In order to move to the red tier, we need 2 consecutive weeks at 7 new cases or under. The 7.6 actually marks the second straight week where we've had increases. At the county level, they've been reporting about 1,200 new infections a day. We need to be in the 700 to 800 range. Our overall positivity rate of 3.7% would actually allow us to move into the orange category, and our 6% health equity metric would qualify Los Angeles County, and those are the greatest groups at risk in Los Angeles County, would allow us to move into the red. However, you may not move in advance in your economic reopenings until all 3 of those metrics meet certain criteria for a 2-week period. Next slide, please. However, since we last met, the County of Los Angeles has provided some additional reopening allotments. The county's new economic reopening and new health order is titled Safer at Work and in the Community. It was put in place in May 29th. Currently, they've allowed for a waiver program of TK through 2nd grade in elementary schools. They'll process up to 30 applications a week for schools, and prioritization will be provided to schools with higher percentage of students qualified for free and reduced lunch meals. And in order for a school to reopen, the state oversight over, or the California Department of Public Health must also review in order to move forward in conjunction with the County of Los Angeles. Additionally, the County of Los Angeles allowed cities to make the call if they opened up outdoor playgrounds, which we have. Signs have been posted with the mandates of the health order, including face masks, and we have also opened up the skate park as well. Next slide, please. Here are 4 other areas since the last time we met where additional reopenings have been allowed. From breweries and wineries, there is a reservation system that's required with some additional infection protocols. Summaries here: nail salons may operate indoor with 25% of capacity indoors. There's also the urging from LA County that they continue outdoor operations to the extent possible. Card rooms have been allowed to operate outside. And by the way, the county, just for those of you watching, defines outside as only 1 wall enclosed with 3 walls open. In addition, some indoor shopping malls have also been allowed to open at 25% capacity. However, the food malls are closed for sit-down eating, but the to-go meals like other restaurants are still allowed. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, the county has a safety compliance certificate program, meaning if you're a business and you are allowed to reopen, the county will work with you to ensure all the policies, procedures, and for your industry cluster that you've met those, in case there is an inspection by the county on the business's activities. This is free of charge, and the link to that certification program is included here. Next slide, please. So as for the city of Glendora, obviously we must follow both the state and county. If the state sets the ceiling, the county sets the floor. The city could be even more restrictive. However, we have not done that to date. Next slide, please. For the last 2 weeks, city facilities have been open on Tuesday and Thursday to the extent we're allowed to open certain facilities per the County of Los Angeles. Next week, we will transition to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the reopening. As I'm sure many of you watching, including those of you who have returned to work, obviously childcare has become an incredibly difficult task, especially with learning from home. And so we remain flexible with our employees to ensure that they are getting their work done both remotely and on premises, and have offered a lot of different ways to get in touch with the city, from submitting online plans and checking permits to doing a pickup of library books outside, sort of a curbside pickup, in addition to still making an appointment for passport services, human resource services. So City Hall is definitely open 5 days a week. We'd be more than happy. If you have any questions, just contact us and we can set up any form of meeting that you like. Next slide, please. As always, we include the websites and links here at both a federal, state, and local level where you can find information on COVID-19. Next slide, please. And with that, we'll turn it over for questions. I know this evening's update includes a further, step back from potentially walking down the path of reopening. We have been in contact with staff and chambers of commerce from other cities, trying to look at options moving forward and how we advocate for a more robust reopening, including safety protocols. This is something actually the City Council in their April meeting requested staff to work with both the county and state level to ensure there is a safe reopening to the largest extent possible. And with that, Mayor, turn it back over to you for any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Does anyone have any questions of Adam?
No.
No?
No.
Great. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring attention to staff on the appropriate placement of topics in their correct location on the agenda. This item item number 3 under special items should actually be placed under the new business because it also requires public comment before council action. And in fact, it should be placed under new business. And the published agenda does not denote public comment on this item. Out of abundance of caution, we do not want to set precedents in this area designated only for one-way communication. So with that, moving on to special item 3, consideration of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Glendora to be an inclusive city, requested by Councilman Thompson and actually pushed out by Pro Tem Davis. Karen, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the agenda packet and under the staff report, it refers to an incident that happened at the Glendora Historical Society meeting on September 28th, where the meeting was disrupted by statements of ignorance and hate. And those were directed in part at the president of the Historical Society, Stephen Flowers, as well as all who were on that Zoom meeting endured that deplorable behavior. Following that meeting, I was in conversation with Mr. Flowers, and he penned a resolution that I looked at, and also Councilmember Thompson looked at, and I felt it was imperative for us to respond to what happened, as well as to affirm what we have said in our strategic planning and in our mission statement for the city, that we seek to be an inclusive community. And our comments in this resolution, the goal is to celebrate and affirm who we are as the City of Glendora, but also to say what we denounce. We celebrate what makes Glendora home for us, but we need to say that ignorance and hate have no home in the City of Glendora. So that is why this resolution is brought before the council tonight. And so I defer now to Councilmember Thompson, if you have any additional comments.
Karen, thank you so much. And I just want to affirm everything that you've said. You said it in a eloquent way, just a way that I think we can all agree to. And I was ashamed by the event that you referred to. I think we all were. And the resolution that I trust that we will approve really speaks to, I think, who we are, what we are, and what we want to always be. And there's a saying that we want to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think that there's no time like now to adopt this. So I am happy and pleased to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mendel. At this point, I'll open up the public comment period, invite members of the public to address the City Council. Speakers limited to 3 minutes, speaking only on this agendized item. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes. If you'd like to request to speak, select the raise hand icon in the Zoom before the close of public comment period. You will then be called on when your time is up to speak. Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any comments that have been received?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We have not received any via email. We do have a couple of people that are on the call that would like to make a comment on this. First person is Stephen. We're going to unmute him. Stephen, are you on?
Yes, I am. I want to talk about the urban coyote management plan. Is this the
Okay,
appropriate
so
time?
that will
No.
be later on in the agenda, and we'll call you at that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have one other person, Mary C. Are you here to speak on this item?
No, I'm actually on to speak on the coyote management plan. So
Okay,
I'll just.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We will call you at that time. Thank you. So Mayor, that we don't have anybody else who has requested to speak on this item.
Thank you, Elvia. I'll close public comment period, bring it back to council. Mendel, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Yes, I'd like to share that I certainly support the resolution. The actions of the few that spread hate and ignorance and impacting many. We shall not tolerate this disrespect, the violence, or civil disobedience that seems to be happening around us. Glendora is better than that, and we will certainly continue to work to strive toward what makes Glendora great. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, David. Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. You know, Kathy and I were actually on the Historical Society presentation. It was a presentation having to do with some special architecture here in town. And, you know, we were all shocked when it happened. And, you know, it's a shame that these types of attacks happen at all, let alone to something like the Historical Society. And especially, you know, under the leadership of Stephen Flowers. Stephen is one of the most honorable people I've ever met. And, you know, his leadership in the Historical Society has brought a new, younger ideas to Glendora, which is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank Stephen for the professional way in which you handled this situation, but especially for bringing to our attention that even though Glendora is a welcoming and inclusive community, that we've never taken that step to memorialize this sentiment with a resolution adopted by the City Council before. And so for that, I want to just note to Stephen that we appreciate you bringing us to our attention, and I definitely support this resolution.
Thank you, Gary. Karen, any last words?
No, when the council's ready, I'm ready to make it a formal motion to move forward. I concur with Mr. Boyer that it's long overdue for us to make a public statement that there's no place for hate and ignorance. So I am happy to make a motion to approve this.
Thank you, Karen. I too commend you, Karen and Mendel, for taking initiative to doing this. I met with Stephen. He and I are good friends, and it's sad that this has happened to him. I know we have some knuckleheads out there that for some reason like doing things of this nature. It's not right. It's not Glendora. We shouldn't stand for it, and I'm thankful for memorializing the stance that we are taking now. So Deputy City Clerk, do you want to request a motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the recommended action at this time is to adopt a City Council resolution entitled "A Resolution of the City of Glendora, California to be an Inclusive City." And I believe Mayor Pro Tem Davis has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Thompson. I will now take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And the resolution passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elvia. So this brings us now to public comment. So I'll open up the public comment, invite members of the public to address the city council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on both on and off agenda items. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes. If you'd like to request to speak, select the raise hand icon in Zoom before the close of the public comment period. You will then be called on when your turn is up to speak. So do we have any public comment cards or any emails came in beforehand that wanted to be read?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, we did receive 2 emailed public comments prior to 4 o'clock that were made part of the agenda packet, were published on the website and are available to the public. Subsequent to that, we have received 5 emails since that time from various folks that would like their comments to be read, that will be read first. In addition to that, we've got several folks that have raised their hands in the Zoom meeting. So to start, I'm going to read the comments that were emailed to us. The first of which is from Eileen Diamond, and I'm going to start the timer now. Dear Mayor Alawas and council members, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed coyote management plan. In the 30 years my family and I have lived in our neighborhood between Cullen and Sellers schools, we have never experienced a coyote issue anywhere near the one we are experiencing now. Specifically, our neighborhood has become home to several mange-infested coyotes that roam our yards and streets day and night with no fear of humans. These sickly coyotes hang out by our front doors, under our cars, and in our yards. On more than one occasion, we have had gruesome evidence left in our driveway and yard of animals killed by the coyotes. Coyotes residing in my neighborhood are in desperate shape with large gaping wounds and significant fur loss due to an apparent mange infestation. There is a notable difference in the behavior of these specific coyotes as compared to coyotes observed in neighborhoods in the past. Over the years, an occasional coyote would traverse the neighborhood without lingering and would purposefully avoid humans. But now this group of coyotes residing in the neighborhood roams the neighborhood day and night, coming within close proximity of people within their yards or walking through the neighborhood. It has become increasingly treacherous to walk a dog on a leash. Hazing, usually an effective deterrent, has little to no impact on the behavior of these particular coyotes. Consequently, residents and their pets are at higher risk of having a dangerous encounter with one of these coyotes. When reporting coyote sightings or encounters, one is often reminded that coyotes are a natural part of living in the foothills and that drought, fires, land development have forced coyotes down to the neighborhoods. This holds much validity, but not in our particular neighborhood where the coyotes are not transients, but habituated coyotes. It is clear that these coyotes reside in dens actually located within the neighborhood at an unkept property on Bennett adjacent to the wash and areas along the wash bordering Cullen School and just north of Leodora. These coyotes are often roaming Cullen School property and Old Hammer Park, areas utilized by children. I greatly appreciate that Mayor Alawas has taken this issue very seriously and has listened to residents' concerns. The proposed coyote management plan serves to protect both coyotes and residents mainly through education. However, the plan also needs to include strategies and tactics aimed at addressing a specific issue as the one occurring in my neighborhood involving a high concentration of urban habituated coyotes infested with highly contagious mange and exhibiting unusual behavior. In summary, I support the adoption of the coyote management plan, but recommend the additional mitigation strategies aimed at addressing extraordinary situations like the one occurring in my neighborhood. Perhaps a wildlife expert could assess the specific situation described, speak with residents, recommend actions that will help address the plight of these sick coyotes and help alleviate the anxiety and concern of the residents living in the affected area. We live in a beautiful community teeming with wildlife that we gladly coexist with, but intervention is needed when animal behavior changes and public safety is at risk. Respectfully, Eileen Diamond. And that's the time. The next one is from Teresa Hugh. Dear Mayor and Council members, please realize no one in Glendora woke up one morning and said, let's go kill coyotes. Those that request humane trapping and euthanization do so because science has proven that removal of the most habituated coyotes showing bold aggressive behavior is the only effective approach for restoring a healthy fear of man. That healthy fear keeps pets, humans, and coyotes safe. There are a lot of misconceptions that trapping methods are cruel and inhumane. The public has been misinformed and lied to by the animal rights organizations like HSUS, Project Coyote, and PETA. They choose to lie and deceive the public, saying that trapping methods are cruel and inhumane to support an agenda. In reality, nothing could be further from the truth. There are ways to control coyotes humanely. There will always be a need for lethal control, and the time is now before a human is attacked and before any more beloved pets are lost. Fortunately, there are humane methods that animal rights activists somehow fail to mention. The colorum is used widely by the LA County Agricultural Weights and Measures Agency to provides humane capture and euthanasia. It is species-specific design trap. The coyote bites and pulls on a baited trigger that throws a cable loop around its neck. There is no choking. It is merely hold the coyote in place until the trapper arrives, usually within 2 hours, and administers euthanasia. I am providing you tonight with the study results produced by USDA National Wildlife Center that compare the colorum with other traps, describing not only their efficiency, but selectivity and injury avoidance. I would like you to work with Los Angeles County AG and focus on trapping in the areas that are having the most problems. The time is way overdue to proactively, not reactively, especially with humane and effective tools exist. I wish to appeal to your desire to protect public health and safety. Please, let's be wise in our shared concerns of this problem. We must remove the emotion and take care of constituents by using effective, proven solutions. Being a leader means doing what is right, not what is popular. Thank you, Teresa Hugh. The next one is from Gary Marzolino. I have had numerous discussions with Gary Boyer and other council members about our urban coyote problem. They have moved from the foothills above Glendora into our residential neighborhoods over the last 50 years. The viewpoint expressed to me is that coexistence is how we should deal with urban coyotes. I played in the foothills above Rubel Castle in the 1960s with my friends. We hiked to the top of the mountain range. This is the coyote habitat. They never bothered us or our dogs. They ate rabbits and rodents. I don't remember them killing our outdoor cats or bothering the chickens. Fast forward, and we have a totally different set of circumstances. The coyote population has exploded and the amount of pet attacks are accelerated. Outdoor cats have disappeared. Their prey, rats and mice, have bred prolifically and become a problem in our homes. The coyote preferred diet has become neighborhood cats and small dogs. My neighbors on Myrtle Avenue have one of their cats grabbed and killed while my dog alerted me. The cat's head and paws was left on a friend's lawn 2 blocks down. Her video camera showed a pack of 5 coyotes in her front yard that evening. The amount of small dog attacks and killings in total unacceptable in our own backyards. It should be safe to walk our dog in the city streets. Hazing will not make a coyote less hungry or inhibit its behavior to eat our pets. It will not fill and can with rocks and rattle it. It will not fill and can with rocks and rattle it. It will harm a coyote that enters my property and threatens me or my dog. That is our legal right. The population is now so large that we have sickly and mange-infested animals running our streets. This can't be sustained. The only logical solution is removal and eradication. So it does not surprise me that this ordinance is more of a people management plan than addressing the real problem of wild animals hunting our pets. We do not require behavior modification techniques to be prisoners in our own yards. I would like to know how IVHS will be equipped to trap and remove coyotes. How are they going to get equipment, training, and manpower to be effective? Will they work with those of us who know where the coyotes are living to set traps and remove them? Last year, 2 of us removed a rattlesnake from next to the drinking fountain at the Sandy Miss Dog Park after being told they were too busy to dispatch anyone. Will they work with those of us who know where the coyotes are living to set traps and remove them? Okay, and the last one is from Kevin Wood. Dear Mayor, Alawas, and council members, I am happy to see that the Coyote Management Plan and council agenda and hope and expect this to pass without issue. Although this is a good start, it does not nearly go far enough in addressing the issue we have in Glendora, which is much more out of control than I have ever seen in my 25 years of living here. It used to be that hazing would send a coyote running the other way. In the last 7 years, the coyotes have become immune to this and now simply ignore it. A month ago, we had one park itself under a truck in our driveway in the middle of the day. This happened over several days. They are getting too unafraid of us, and I worry this will eventually turn into more aggression. I understand living near the foothills brings potential hazards like wild animals, but there must be more we can do to protect ourselves, our pets, and our children from them. Although the proposed coyote management plan is a good start, it seems that the city is unwilling to do anything to remove nuisance coyotes, for example, ones with mange, unless or until there has been an attack or one is imminent. This is way too late. The plan is heavily geared to educating the public about not feeding coyotes, etc., which I think is good. Will there be any benchmarks for the success of the plan? How will the success of the plan be measured? Thank you for listening and acting, Kevin Wood. We've got one more from David Clark. Coyotes in the city of Glendora. There are many people that are dedicated to many causes, but not all people can be fully involved in each and every cause. That does not mean they're not concerned about many of the issues presented to us on any given day. I wanted to commend all those that are willing to sacrifice their time in an effort to promote many of the issues that I am concerned about, but do not physically participate in the resolution. I've lived in Glendora for 25 years, and I have watched the coyote population and sightings in Glendora increase to the point where their presence has gone from occasional sightings to near daily sightings and potential risk to people and their pets. Controlling the coyote population is similar to controlling non-native species of plants. The longer you put it off, the worse the problem is going to get, and the harder it will be to bring it back to control. These issues will never disappear, but need to be addressed all the same and continue to be addressed. The coyotes needs to be addressed not only by the city of Glendora, but all surrounding communities, as they do not confine themselves to the city boundaries. Learning to live with the coyotes with an uncontrolled population growth is not an option. Doing the right thing is always the easy thing, and for the sake of the community, please do the right thing and get control of the coyote population. David Clark. We will now move to the folks that have requested to speak. We've got 5 requests. The first one is Stephen. I believe we spoke with you earlier. Stephen, are you there?
Try again. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Stephen, yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes?
3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes, okay. So I want to say thank you, City Council and Mayor Alawas for developing this plan and giving me the opportunity to speak about it. I think it's important to have this plan to address the community problems, and I appreciate education being the centerpiece of this plan. However, I have some real serious concerns about the plan itself. Much of it lacks scientific evidence or support for the plan. One of the pillars, hazing, it's one of the major pillars of the plan. There's no scientific evidence to support hazing as an effective management tool. I've discussed this with Lieutenant Smurl. I've discussed this with other biologists of the department, and they've acknowledged that. So I'd like to see some of that kind of addressed. When it comes to the trapping, I believe Teresa Hughes said the same thing. I don't know if it's left out of the plan out of ignorance or just unintentionally, but there are Belial foot traps and collarums that secure animals and allow them to be released completely unharmed. So I think it's really important that we get professional wildlife management people like Lieutenant Smurl and like biologists from CDFW to continue to look over this plan. I'd recommend the city develop a stakeholder working group, basically composed of California Fish and Game, Inland Valley Humane, concerned residents, city staff, Glendora Police, to kind of work out a lot of these issues. So it would probably get implemented in a better way. And I'd like to see science and data be the pillar of that plan. There's some issues with some links from the Humane Society US and the city's webpage that I strongly disagree with. They're an animal rights organization. I think the city should take a look at that and consider removing them. and put some updated information from California Fish and Game on there. And my last point is Inland Valley Humane Society. So I've got some real big concerns with this group, especially concerning the coyote management plan, but their lack of involvement in assisting the city in really managing the coyote problem and other animal problems. They have a big time lack of responsiveness. My dad called about a raptor that landed in his yard and had a band wrapped around its claw, and they said they couldn't do anything about that. Kind of just that's it. My dad went fishing in a local lake that was in their jurisdiction and saw a goose that was caught in fishing line, called them, no response. And I called Monday early morning to about lunch, trying to reach Favi Leon regarding the coyote management plan, and she has yet to return my phone call. So I guess to sum this whole thing up, thank you for developing a plan. I think the plan should involve science and data. I think the city should bring together a working group to address the problem. That way, we get the best result. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. The next person we have up is Karen S. Karen, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Karen, thank you. You've
Thank
got
you.
3 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. Thank you for finally getting a coyote management plan up for vote. It's years overdue, and it's disappointing that it took so long to address your constituents' concerns. I noticed that our plan was just a copy of Brea's coyote management plan, and I'm wondering why we did that. Why did we not have an original Glendora coyote management plan? My question is, once this plan is approved, what is the date for it being productional? In reviewing the plan, it reads like an opinion piece, and I notice no footnotes to peer-reviewed research that supports the declarations. Regarding enforcement of laws about feeding, will this data be transparent and available for public viewing? For example, in 2019, how many citations were issued for these violations? There is mention of participation of community members. Did you get input from the community for this plan? If so, when did you do this and how? If not, why? Regarding education, the declarations are accurate but not doable. It requires at least 80% community participation for it to work, and we will not get anywhere near that. I might do what needs to be done in a yard audit, but my neighbor, who paid $20,000 to have his front yard landscaped to look like a forest, including a water feature, is not going to make changes. So any changes I make are irrelevant. It's accurate that coyote food availability is what drives coyotes. You mentioned securing trash cans. Is the city going to issue these? My neighbors are not going to buy secure trash cans. My neighbors are not going to change from putting trash cans out the night before to the morning of trash collection. So this education is not going to work. And a big point here, I understand coyote sightings should be reported to the city according to the plan. Other things such as aggressive coyotes threatening pets, etc., need to be reported to IVHS. This is going to be a significant problem that we do not have one single point of contact. Also, what will the response be from IVHS to the reports of aggressive coyotes? Will this data be made transparent to the community, and if so, when? The plan says to report close encounters to California Fish and Wildlife. What is the difference between coyotes threatening people, which are reported to IVHS, and close encounters, which are reported to California Fish and Wildlife? It's mentioned that coyotes are a top predator, so they control the population of squirrels, mice, rabbits, etc. The coyote did not used to be the top predator, so there was coyote population control. It no longer has a predator, so who keeps its population under control? And why is one okay, but not the other? I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
We have Christina Earl. Christina, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Yes, you've got 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I'm very happy that the city is putting a program in place, as this has been a concern for us and many of our neighbors for a long time now. Our neighborhood is infested with coyotes that have mange and appear to be very unhealthy. They sleep on our neighbors' porches and backyards. We worry our pets will get diseases or worse. Well, a lot of people have lost their animals, and we also worry about our grandchildren. So very happy to see something is starting to happen. These coyotes don't have any fear of humans, and we're very concerned that someone will get hurt. It's only a matter of time now. So we appreciate you looking at the issue, and I'm wondering if you can share the criteria you will use to determine if the program is successful and speak to transparency on progress. Will there be updates online? Is this program going to evolve to be maybe more inclusive of addressing the issues? Reporting on the sightings, we stopped reporting the sightings because they are almost daily. We see them all the time. And the reports seemed pretty much unwelcome and pointless in the past. So we're happy to start reporting them again, as long as we feel like there's going to be some action taken. And I really want to thank you guys, all of you, for looking at the issue and starting to take action. So we look forward to hearing more about how it's going to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina.
We have John Caddis. John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, you have 3 minutes, please. Go ahead.
I'd like to make comments related to agenda item 12, the short-term rentals. Is that allowed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in full disclosure, I've never rented any of my properties as a short-term rental. I have no desire to do so, and I don't have any short-term rental companies, so no financial interest in this at all. But I have read the materials, and while I commend you and the rest of the city council for taking this seriously, I think we're missing an opportunity to protect our police department and keep our legal expenses down. And the other thing I'm concerned about is we're creating another revenue stream. So when I look at this and when I read this, I see that even if this agreement with HDL were to occur, and even if we had an application process, we would end up in the same exact place as we were with the mansion party. I note that we've introduced 2 additional tiers of fees, but as we all know, for something like this, those 2 additional tiers of fees would be pennies. And I just wonder why we couldn't be a little bit more proactive in the application process. For example, why couldn't we proactively say to each person applying that should the police be required to intervene, that it's the property owner's responsibility to pay for all of the cost that the city might incur. The second thing is, why couldn't we proactively empower the police and protect them in some way by giving them some added protections to enter the property instead of waiting outside and being video cameraed by everybody? And so they become easy targets. So these are 2 items that are suggestions that I would like for you to consider. But in short, I don't think that what is before us today does anything to change what would have happened months ago, other than just increasing a few dollars for the fees, but they aren't even substantial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Joe Cena, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Mayor Elois, council, and staff, thank you very much for letting me to speak tonight. My name is Joe. I'm the president and CEO of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce. The chamber continues to help our local businesses decipher the ins and outs of owning a business during COVID-19. Last 7 months, as we all know, has many challenges, but we continue to help where we can, help the businesses find possible solutions, funding, or just be there to talk and give them ideas. Looking ahead, I can't believe we're already starting this, but we're starting to plan our holiday shopping program as we do every year, but taking in mind all the social and health details we have to deal with, but at the same time featuring and trying to get our retail, up in front of everybody so people can remember to shop local, throughout the city. I know it's Prime Day soon, but how's that helping us here locally? But in this year, just want to remind everybody that probably more than ever, we really need to think local when we do our shopping now and through the holidays coming up here. And at the same time, with some of the fun stuff we have planned, the shoppers can possibly win some prizes for themselves. So we have some, like I mentioned, we have some fun stuff coming up. So we'll be releasing that in the next few weeks. A couple of anniversaries. I know the ice cream shop here in the village was here 1 year this past month. And also for those that like cheesesteak, West Coast Cheesesteak tomorrow is celebrating 1 year in the Set Center on Lone Hill and Route 66. It's a difficult spot, but they're doing a great job at it. So you could check that out. And also in closing, I just want to thank the council for your public stance on inclusion. And that anything other than that is not welcome in town. So I congratulate you on taking that. So again, hope everybody stays healthy and safe. The chamber is here to help. And if you need anything, you know where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. You're muted, Elvia.
Oh, sorry, Randy Fainage, are you there?
I am here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. You've got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, council members. This is Randy Feilish, and I am a volunteer and Southern California representative for Project Coyote. I commend the city of Glendora for their coyote management plan and fully support it. The goal of a coyote management plan is to support coexistence for urban coyotes using education, behavior modification, and development of a tiered response to aggressive coyote behavior. The tiered response requires active participation on the part of the entire community and also the city personnel. Coyotes play an important ecological role, helping to maintain healthy ecosystems and species diversity. As the top carnivore in some ecosystems, coyotes provide a number of benefits, including the regulating of rodent control and helps to boost biodiversity. Education is the key to coexistence. Project Coyote's Coyote Friendly Communities program educates and equips urban and rural audiences with the tools, resources, and expertise needed to foster coexistence. The keys to coexistence are education, communication, science, and behavior modification. We fully support your coyote management plan and we commend the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Mary C, are you there, Mary?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, please go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, first of all, for developing this plan. It's been greatly needed. I've been a resident of Glendora on Maida Avenue for 22 years, and we've raised our daughter here. So I'm very familiar with the differences from coyotes in the past to even, I would say, the last few years. It got worse, and this year is nothing like I've ever seen with the amount of coyotes with mange, and also aggressive coyotes. And I wanted to ask, hopefully there'll be a time when you guys could answer questions, but there was nothing on the plan that addressed coyotes with mange. And I mention this because almost every coyote that I see in the neighborhood, there's 6 to 7 that frequent my street, have different variations of mange. And the residents have called the Humane Society, they've called Fish and Game, and we just get the runaround. So that's an issue, but so I wanted to address that since it's not mentioned on the plan. I believe that's a health issue, a public health issue. Mange can get spread to pets, and these coyotes, as other residents have mentioned, are hanging out on lawns, and it's nothing I've ever seen or experienced. And then number two, aggressive coyotes. And I know in your plan, you have it laid out what is considered an aggressive coyote. I have seen aggressive coyotes. There's 3 in my area that have been stalking a few people while they were walking, stalking someone that was walking with a dog. One even chased a neighbor. So their behavior is accelerating. And my concern is that a child is going to get bit or a dog on a leash is going to get attacked. And hopefully the aggressive coyotes that are stalking people can be trapped, because we have some now and that's more of concern to me than the ones with mange, because I don't want to wait until someone gets bit for action to be taken. I think stalking, chasing is escalating to that point. And I wanted to thank again the council and the mayor for developing this plan. And I've also sent pictures of various coyotes in this neighborhood and what they look like to the city council. So they should have that. And that was a few weeks ago. I've sent that in. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mary. LV, any other comments out there, requests?
Thank you, Mayor. We have not received any further requests to speak via the Zoom meeting or via email.
All right, I'll close public comment period at this point in time. And I've taken copious notes, and hopefully we can address some of the speakers' comments tonight. So this will take us to reports and statements. I'd like to invite the council to give the report if need be. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And it's hard to think that we're in fall. I love fall because it's a season of change and refreshment. Hopefully some rain comes and temperatures drop. And I don't know about most of you, but I'm ready in 79 days to move into 21, praying, hoping that 21 will be a better year than 20. So with that said, I certainly support Joe and what he said. The city is 20 square miles and we have a lot of places to shop and eat. And I really hope that during the next 79 days that we can make it a point to eat here, shop here, and support those that have struggled through a tough year. The goal line, or the L line, as it's being called, continues to see growth and a lot of work being done. I know that there was a water main that broke, not expected, but we got all that fixed, and work just continues to go on, and so we're thankful for that. I also want to thank the folks that fought the fires, especially the local fire, the Bobcat fire. Thankfully, that seems to be going out, and thankful for all of them. 2 additional points, and that is we need to vote. There's a lot of elections that are occurring, city, county, state, and national. And I would encourage each and every one to exercise the citizens' right to, vote and really lean into everything that is out there. The last thing that I'd like to say is I want to express my support for the many students, parents who want to see schools, open up. I would encourage each and every one of them to lean hard into county. I know that Adam gave an excellent update on schools and people that you can talk to. But I think we all have seen and heard and feel the stress of our students, parents, those that teach them. And I would hope that each and every one of us would make a strong attempt to make our voices known, so that the county can hear us and take appropriate steps to open up schools. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, and be pleased to do so, recognize two organizations in Glendora that have been caught doing something good. First one was a group of young adults from the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints on their mission program. A group of 21 missionaries reached out and asked, what can we do in the community? And they actually spent a day over at the Fairmount Pioneer Cemetery making a huge difference in landscaping and gardening and cleaning up so that that the site looks like it deserves to look. These folks were pleased to do so because they're from all around the country. They're sort of handcuffed with this COVID process and their mission program is constrained. So they were pleased to get out and do something in the community, and I applaud them for that. Second group I'd like to recognize is the Serrano chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution right here in Glendora. They are entering their Patriotism Month, and they're offering for sale as a nominal fundraiser, but a great opportunity for a nonpartisan, non-biased, non-political, let's be a patriot. And they're offering yard signs. I have one right behind me. That can be made available to you by contacting the Daughters of the American Revolution. What a great way to tell the world that we're proud to be in Glendora and proud to be who we are as an inclusive city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. We have our own sign already, both of them. Thank you. Gary?
Yeah, I just want to, first off, make sure everybody knows that the Dodgers actually came back and scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning. The bad news is they needed 5 in order to send it into extra innings. So the Dodgers are down 2-0. We had a closed session before our regular meeting tonight, and it was a little bit shorter than planned. So we had some time in between, and it gave me an opportunity to get out and go for a little walk. And I walked around Finkbeiner Park. And I got to tell you, it was pretty interesting to walk through the village and then over to Finkbeiner to see how the residents of Glendora are adapting to life as we're dealing with it right now. A lot of the restaurants were busy. People were walking around the village. The ice cream shop was very busy. I walk over to Finkbeiner, and there's a city-sponsored program for some small children that they're out getting some exercise with the parents sitting around and watching, wearing masks, staying socially distanced to stay away. There were kids in the skate park, not all of them wearing masks, but some of them wearing masks. It's just nice to see that the community has the ability to adapt and is doing a good job doing that to keep us all safe. The other thing is, all of the comments on the coyote management program, I just want to make sure that we really appreciate everybody coming on and sharing with us your different thoughts. This is something we have been discussing for a long time, and I'm glad to see that we're taking a look at it. But I started writing down questions, and there got to be so many, I stopped because I think we're going to have to go back and review a lot of the questions that came up to make sure that we've covered them. So we are listening. We hear what everybody's concerns are. We live in the same neighborhoods you do. Our grandkids play in the same parks yours do. So we do take this serious, but we want to make sure that we make the right decision so we don't make the problem worse than what it already is. So we will be discussing that later on this evening. That's it. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to remind everyone that hope springs eternal. So just keep watching the Dodger Blue and be sure to exercise your right to vote, whether you mail in your ballot or you go in person, make your voice known through your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. In preparation for tonight's county management plan discussion, city staff and council member Gary Boyer and myself met with California Fish and Wildlife last Tuesday. Had a very, very productive meeting that helped shape the plan moving forward, and tonight's discussion as well. I was fortunate to be selected on the League of California Cities Nomination Committee, where 5 fellow mayors from up and down the state of California nominated new league leadership last Friday. And our delegate, Mendel Thompson, closed the deal with his vote on Friday, confirming them. Last week, I had an opportunity to meet with one of our assemblywomen, Blanca Rubio, where we discussed local issues and state issues affecting our city and our region. And it's always really good to connect with our elected folks in Sacramento to have our voice be heard and what we're dealing with here on a local level. So with that, it brings us to reordering the agenda. Does anyone wish to reorder the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move forward. We have no public hearing tonight, so this brings us to our consent calendar. I would like for staff to comment on item number 10.
Evening, everyone. There's several staff on the agenda item in case there's any clarification necessary. Some time ago, staff presented the city council with a resolution about a bike path that was proposed to go along Foothill instead of Route 66. Since that time, after that meeting, council gave direction for staff to come back with the approval of the bike path, which is nothing new. It's really a multi-city jurisdictional sort of, hey, you can ride Route 66 from start to end type thing. The item in the agenda on 2 different platforms was published in 2 different ways. The first one had 2 recommendations. One was to not adopt the resolution, and the second one was to adopt the resolution. Subsequent to that, the report was corrected to only include 1 recommendation since the item's under consent, and that is to approve the recommendation, which is calling for Route 66 to be a historic bike route as well. So the consent item before the council this evening only has 1 option, and that is to approve the resolution to name Route 66 as a bike path or a bike route, which matches the other cities surrounding us. And this was directly a result of council's urging in a previous meeting.
Thank you, Adam. So items on 5 through 10 on the consent calendar will be enacted by 1 motion without individual discussion, unless a council member has requested it to be removed on a separate discussion. Does anyone wish to poll or comment on any consent item?
Like to make a motion to approve items 5 through 10.
Second.
Madam Deputy City Clerk, do you want to take a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will now take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And they're approved 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. So this brings us to unfinished business. Item 11, strategic planning update for October 2020. I'd like to invite City Manager, Mr. Adam Raymond, to present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members again. Today is an update of the city's strategic plan and sort of touches back to a meeting we had in late July. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, Elvia, please. So by background, the city's had about 20 strategic planning sessions where it sets goals and objectives. These strategic planning sessions also have been utilized to update the city's mission and vision statements, as well as its core values. Next slide, please. On our current 3-year strategic plan was set forth in August of 2019. We had 5 new goals, and the city made slight changes to its vision statement, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Next slide, please. And as many of you know, since the adoption in August 2019, we had all of the COVID-related issues that have popped up. And during that time, in July 2020, City Council, city staff, and members of the boards and commissions met to discuss the city's current plan. One of the things that came loud and clear was to focus on long-term COVID-19 recovery, and important that we align the future goals and objectives with the upcoming creation of our next 2-year budget, which will span fiscal years 2021 through 21-22 through 22-23. Next slide, please. So just a brief update for the City Council and those of you watching the city's mission statement. The City of Glendora's mission is to provide its citizens and businesses and business community effective municipal services while maintaining our historical sense of community values. Next slide, please. Our vision statement, which was changed recently to add inclusive, that Glendora will be an inclusive, charming, and vibrant community. Next slide, please. Core values the City Council has adopted in previous strategic planning sessions are fiscal responsibility, honesty and integrity, exemplary customer service, accountability, community involvement, and a friendly environment. Next slide. At the August 19th meeting, the City Council adopted these 5 goals to which tasks are created and objectives are created to accomplish these, from increasing financial stability and sustainability, enhancing and modernizing the organization, improving and maintaining the city's infrastructure and facilities, implementing strategic economic development, and enhance employee development and retention. There you'll notice some of the capital letters here are sort of the short names or abbreviations for these goals. Next slide, please. But tonight, staff is recommending an additional goal, and that is to implement strategic homelessness solutions. As everyone knows, we've spent significant amount of staffing and monetary resources helping address the homelessness issue, from providing places to stay in our local hotels and motels during the COVID pandemic, to working with our surrounding communities on a sub-regional housing program, to working with county and LAHSA as well. So tonight, many of the items, there are 3 items that we're going to ask that you add to this new goal, which we also hope that you adopt. Next slide, please. So the outline that's included as the attachment to this item is a fairly robust attachment. It expands on the goals that have been set with the recommendation of the 6th goal by adding 57 objectives and tasks. They're broken down into these areas. We won't go over all of them this evening, but we will touch on a few highlights. And again, these are considered over the next 3 fiscal years. Next slide, please. So in financial area, we are looking at the Sierra Madre Landscape Maintenance District revival. For those of you watching, there's an area abutting some properties on Sierra Madre that's actually private property. They used to have a small assessment on their parcel tax that, and the city contracted to clean that up, and now it's the responsibility of the homeowners, and we've had some challenges seeking compliance. Both some of the neighborhoods and city council have asked staff to come back and reintroduce that. We've also going to undertake a comprehensive fee study that looks at the costs of doing business in the city and the various activities and charges that are done for development and other related projects. We are looking to do increases to the purchasing policy updates to ensure that those in the community know about and have a chance to bid on city services, while providing staff with the resources they need to ensure that purchasing happens quickly so we can move forward with items of importance to the community. We are also looking to establish a new risk management program. Both a position has been budgeted and the required sort of fully looked at all areas from sidewalks to trees and streets to ensure that we have a more risk management focus on capital improvements necessary. Additionally, we have obviously the adoption of our second 2-year budget, which would commence July 1st, 2021. Next slide, please. In modernizing the city, we will move to the remaining of our elections by district. That will be 1 and 4. The map and boundaries need to be redrawn in the 2020 census. It's a pretty involved process considering of maps. There are some new rules around neighborhoods. So for example, if there's an HOA in a neighborhood, the map line can't go between them. So we have lots to do on that before the elections are held. We have about every 2-year community survey that we're looking to update. We are working and have been working on an MOU with Glendora Unified School District, and that would document shared facility use and other services provided from school resource officers to crossing guards. We have a review of our animal control program that's due before December 31st of this year. We also have an administrative manual update, many policies, some of which are very old, that either need to be removed or updated in pretty significant form. And then including an item that's on tonight's agenda, which is the coyote management plan. Next slide, please. In infrastructure, the city is going to revamp the capital improvement plan, looking at how we budget for and place priority on certain capital projects. We also have a process to evaluate the technology needs. One of the things that COVID has really hit home with staff is the necessity to add additional tools to our tool belt to ensure that if anything significant like this happens again, we can ensure sort of a comprehensive and robust services to the public from anywhere. City Council has previously heard updates on the Gladstone splash pad and renovation of that park. We're working on a lot of grant funding for that project, which will be brought forward to the council. The council has already approved some first mile, last mile improvement projects to go along with the gold line that we are working on funding for. And additionally, we'll look at enhancements and modernization to the transportation fleet. Next slide, please. In economic development, the city's applied for a LEAP grant, which will help us complete our housing element. That will be done by October of 2021. And there are 2 items here that will go hand in hand with a general plan update that should start 2 years from now. And that includes our downtown area and the development in and around the Gold Line station. And so the Gold Line, if you see the L line in parentheses, it's because Metro ran out of colors and they've transitioned to letters. So the Gold Line really is the L line, but people mostly know it as the Gold Line. So we'll continue with both names until we transition to just the L line. Additionally, staff is working on SB2 grants, which include software updates on the development side, including ways to streamline the approval of permits for various development related scenarios. Next slide, please. For employees, we have a comprehensive update necessary or required from our personnel policies and procedures. We are currently working on a water division class and comp study that got interrupted through COVID. And additionally, we have a library class and comp study as well. We are looking to implement with departments succession planning, as we have a large segment of our city population that will move towards retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. We want to ensure that we identify those individuals who will take a leadership role, address any gaps, and decide how to move forward. We also, in line with practices through our risk management provider, also have training on equity and inclusion and diversity. Next slide, please. In homelessness, 2 of the major areas, we've previously received direction from council and we'll be back before the council on 10/27 with a sub-regional housing project update. And also the staff needs to make updates to the homelessness strategic plan, which is available on our website. Next slide, please. So we do have some other changes that we are recommending to our strategic plan. I think one of the things that we talked about at strategic planning session was, we went through more than 200 unique items. It was really great to hear from both the boards and commissions and city staff, as well as the city council, on what they think are important to the community and how we need to move forward. Staff went through more than those 200 items and provided a more robust package for council to consider, which takes place this year and the next 2 years. So what is the same largely is we have a name of a goal and objective. However, we have added objective details, including steps already taken and steps that need to be completed. We've added extra comments where necessary to provide additional background. Additionally, some of the items are linked and we've provided linkages to those various strategic planning goals and objectives. Next slide, please. We've also added a timeline, which is new. When you look at some of the items in the attachment for the strategic plan, some of them are over multiple years. In some cases, it's just a project that runs multiple years, like the Gold Line, certain technology projects, the housing element, which takes place this fiscal year and next. And other items that are proposed recommend or they're identified as new programs. So net new programs that staff would have to work on, which would have staffing impacts for the foreseeable future. Next slide, please. So upon approval, staff is committed to providing quarterly updates. The plan will become more detailed, where staff will be assigned to the individual tasks and objectives. We'll use our existing technology resources to have a dynamic format to the plan, so everyone can see the updates in real time should they be needed. This allows us to document work plans for staff based on these goals and objectives. And when we're approaching our next 2-year budget cycle, which will kick off in January of 2021, we can ensure those items most important to the city council through this plan will have funding identified to them. Oftentimes what gets funded gets done. Additionally, there are unknown items, unknown future events or community needs that may pop up. One such item is on the agenda tonight with short-term rentals. And so when those items pop up, the plan is dynamic enough where staff will come to city council with recommended changes to the plan if we need to undertake some more significant staff intensive or monetary intensive resources and projects. Next slide, please. So with that, we recommend the city council review, discuss, and adopt the draft strategic plan. And this would take us through this fiscal year and the next two. And again, a sincere appreciation to the council boards and commissions who participated in the meeting, as well as city staff who really looked at their work plans, their staffing, and helped to address some major hurdles. I sit here before you this evening with the understanding that the plan presented to you is aggressive. There are a lot of items, and we will do our very best to ensure that they're all completed within the timeframes estimated in the plan. With that, there are many staff on the phone call this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Back to you,
Thank you,
Mayor.
Adam. Bring us back to council. Mendel, do you have any questions?
No, I have a statement that I want to affirm what our city manager just said. I think Adam did a excellent job of creating kind of the context for this plan, and it is a different type of plan, and I believe it's going to be a very good plan and an excellent plan. Yes, I do have a lot of questions, but I'm going to choose to take those kind of a one-off during the weekly updates that council has with our staff. But overall, I appreciate this plan, support it, and would like to see it approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Mirroring what Mendel just shared, I certainly would like to compliment staff for the presentations, listening to all of the folks that were involved in the conference, and putting together this document as a working document. No easy piece. I want to share for the voting public out there that item number 26 talks about electoral districts and the 2020 census and some redrawing that Mr. Raymond alluded to. And the new state requirements, they're always coming up with new things to throw at us. May change timing of how elections are done. So stay tuned, be aware that there are some new adjustments coming as we're revisiting this and finishing our electoral districts. And I know that and recognize a great deal of staff time and council energies are in fact going to be addressing the homeless issue, which is growing, and the solutions are coming. While they're not as quick as many would like, they are in fact coming, so stay tuned for that. That's a big part of the strategic plan. So I'm encouraged by that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. Gary?
I really don't have any questions right now. This is an extremely aggressive plan, and Adam, I am assuming that we have looked at this with our budget and it's something we think is workable.
Yeah.
But it's just something that I know staff can get to if we give them the challenge, and I'm looking forward to having this move forward, but I'm very supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
No questions at this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. You know, I'm really thankful for Adam putting this together and doing this. I know this is in the middle of COVID-19. It was a stressful situation to make this happen. And I'm sure he wasn't necessarily pleased with the push, but but it's done. It's a great plan moving forward. It's something we need to do. We need to continue to move forward and not let things stop us, like little things called pandemics. And you did this admirably. And I know it was challenging because of social distancing and staff and everything of that nature. So thank you very much for that. I really, really appreciate all the hard work. And also, so will you be reporting out every quarter on the progress on this?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Yeah, so our goal is to come back every quarter, and the next time you see this plan, we'll both have a short version, sort of the Reader's Digest version, then obviously a longer one where staff looks at some of the specific tasks that are necessary and what staff will be assigned to those.
Well, thank you for that. Again, thank you for doing this. I know it was a stressful time putting this together, and thank you for doing the job. Well done. Any final comments on this?
No.
No. Okay, Madam Deputy City Clerk, you want to take read the motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The recommended action now then is to adopt the draft strategic plan for fiscal years 2021 through fiscal years 2022-23 and 2020 to 2023 draft strategic plan. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Councilmember
Second.
Freedom, all motions. Councilmember
Second it.
Thompson,
Yeah.
is that Councilmember Boyer seconds? I apologize.
Boyer, yes.
Thank you. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
Thank you, and that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to item number 12, consideration of adoption of an urgency ordinance regulating the so-called short-term rentals within the geographical boundaries of the city of Glendora, and enter into an agreement with Hindelater D. Lamas and Associates HDL for short to provide short-term rental program management. I'd like to invite Director Jeff Kugel to present the staff report. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is the result, or we're bringing back an item that was the result of a special meeting back on August 27th to address an acute short-term rental issue that was requiring a lot of city resources to respond to, police resources, as well as code enforcement and legal resources. And this is to report back with an ordinance and with a permitting process and with a couple of next steps in implementation of a short-term rental program. So next slide, please. So in recent years, more property owners, more single-family property owners are renting out their homes for short-term rental uses. Short-term rental uses are generally known as the practice of renting residential properties for periods of less than 30 days. And short-term rentals are advertised on various internet platforms such as Airbnb, Vacation Rental by Owner, and others. And it really has become not only a phenomenon in California and the United States, but a worldwide phenomenon and an alternative to traditional hotel lodging for both business travelers and people traveling for vacation purposes. It's also created opportunities for investors in residential property in addition to providing a convenience for people just traveling throughout the region. Next slide. Well, most short-term rentals in the city of Glendora and most places are quiet and accommodate those traveling, through our city and through the region to see various sites or for business purposes. Some have, and a very small number, I want to emphasize that, have become to be used as so-called party houses where renters hold large gatherings, usually on the weekends, and they run late into the night and early into the morning hours. These advertisements are out in addition to being advertised on the platforms that regularly advertise short-term rentals. They're also advertised in the community, and there are charges to be admitted to the events that are essentially parties. The noise and traffic and alcohol consumption, similar party-related activities are extremely disruptive to the normal activity in a residential area at night. And they've also required and again, just really a couple of instances, a lot of city resources to respond in order to restore the neighborhood to sort of the normal levels of activity in the late night hours. This has gone on. I wanted to emphasize as of right now, we estimate, based on looking at some of these platforms, that there are anywhere between 50 and 80 short-term rentals advertised using single-family homes as a short-term rental in the city at any given time. And up to this point, Glendora has not adopted or implemented any regulations in its zoning code or land use regulations to address short-term rentals. Next slide. So as I mentioned, because of really one situation that became acute and demanded a lot of city resources, on October 27th, the City Council imposed a 45-day moratorium, meaning no rental activity for short-term rentals for 45 days while the city developed a program to regulate short-term rentals and make some other changes that I'll talk about. And tonight's hearing is an urgency ordinance. For an urgency ordinance meeting, it needs to be adopted by a 4/5 majority of the council. It's not a noticed hearing like most ordinances. This is done on an urgency or emergency basis. Next slide, please. The urgency ordinance that is before you creates a permitting process specific to short-term rentals. It requires all short-term rentals to obtain a business license in the city. It also requires all short-term rentals to pay a transient occupancy tax, which is a tax typically associated with hotels and motels. It's imposed on those types of businesses for short-term stays in the city. And it also establishes a short-term rental good neighbor policy that will regulate both the management of property and the behavior of tenants or renters while they're using properties for a short-term rental. Next slide. The urgency ordinance, in terms of the management of properties, it requires that there be either the owner or a short-term rental host, as it's called in the ordinance, to be available on an emergency basis 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That ensures that in the event that there are problems at a property, that when the city is called out, that there is a contact who can also respond to the property. It requires that there be a minimum 2-night rental of a short-term rental with a maximum occupancy of a rental of 2 persons per bedroom plus 2 in non-bedroom accommodations. And what that would mean is if you had a 3-bedroom house, you could have 6 people, 2 per bedroom, plus if you had a rollout bed in the living room, that could amount to 8 people within the house for a short-term stay. It additionally allows for up to 10 daytime guests between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. only. So if in that 3-bedroom house, in theory, you could have an event or gathering of up to 18 people. However, once that 10 o'clock hour happened, that number of people at the property who are staying there needs to fall back down to 8 people. There is also only 1 rental agreement permitted for the same site at the same night, so the owner cannot issue multiple rental agreements for a single family house at the same time. The next slide, please. In addition to the ordinance itself, to help administer the ordinance, the city is engaging Hinderleiter and Delamis now. We already engaged Hinderleiter and Delamis for the management and operation of the city's business license program. We have an automated program where businesses in getting a new or renewing their business license don't come into the city or don't need to come into the city to do it. They can do it online, and the processing is done by Hinderleiter and Delamis, which provides a service for Glendora and a number of other cities throughout the region and the state. This would add a permit process to the management of the city's business license process, as well as adding all of the short-term rentals to the rolls that collect transient occupancy tax, or TOT. And then there would be a permit issued, and the review and receiving and coordination of that permit review would be with the Community Development Department, as the regulations for short-term rentals are really part of the zoning code. So next steps, the next steps would be, next slide, please. As part of this, we also, and again, I want to, there's other staff who worked on this ordinance other than myself. One of the future steps will be an ordinance coming back to the City Council on October 27th to increase fines for loud noise and loud party violations. And in addition, because this is an urgency ordinance, we will bring the ordinance back through the traditional process to adopt it in the next, as soon as we can get a final version of the ordinance done and hold public hearings. Next slide, please. This slide indicates what will be happening in the future. An ordinance being brought back to you in October simply lays out what our current fees and proposed fee changes on fines for loud parties would be. Next slide, please. The final version of the short-term ordinance itself, as I mentioned, would be brought back at a later date. Because this is an urgency ordinance, it does not require standard noticing and public hearings normally associated with amendments of the code. And in consulting with the city attorney's office, the best practice is upon adopting an emergency ordinance that we bring back an ordinance through the standard process with a public hearing before the Planning Commission and then City Council. And we're hoping to do that, at least have the Planning Commission hearing in December. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is the last slide. So the requested action is to ask questions of staff and deliberate upon the ordinance, adopt the urgency ordinance, and also execute a contract with HDL for a short-term rental program management. And I want to acknowledge other staff who worked on this, including the police chief, city attorney's office, city clerk's office, as well as department finance director as well. And I believe all are here, and including myself, able to respond to questions that you might have. And that concludes my report.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could chime in just real quick.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. Jeff talked about the way we're going to track the adoption of this ordinance. The reason that we're so-called tracking it, that is, one is an urgency ordinance and the second through the normal ordinance adoption process, is because the moratorium was adopted for only a 45-day period of time. We don't want to have a gap in coverage where there is no ordinance in place while we're adopting the ordinance during the regular course of events that would typically go through, in part, the Planning Commission and be brought onto the City Council. By adopting the urgency ordinance by a 4/5 vote tonight, we protect the public safety, health, and general welfare by assuring that there's no gap in regulatory oversight over short-term rentals between the lapse of the urgency ordinance and the adoption of the short-term rental ordinance in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jeff. We'll bring it back to Council. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And Jeff, thank you for an excellent job here. I want to reflect my sincere thanks for all the staff that you mentioned. I can still recall the Saturday night when the mansion party exploded, and on Sunday at 5 o'clock, Mayor and Adam and I thought we were going to have a Zoom call with 6 people that lived within that area, and 115 folks that lived within that area called in and were a part of that Zoom call and expressed their clear thoughts about what we should be doing. And I want to applaud the staff, the council for stepping up in extraordinary speed, and to think that it's been 48 days and we now have this. I just want to say thank you to each and every one. The citizens have been well served. This had bubbled up, and most of us had been advised of all of this, and friends that have stopped us. but it wasn't until that specific night and then subsequent all of the work since then that city staff has really moved, and I believe has something here that I'm going to support, and I hope that we all do. I only have two things, and for those who don't know, the council meets once a week. There's only two of us that can meet, so I want to make sure that that's clear. And we are briefed on a lot of things. And this morning was when David and I briefed, and I asked the chief this question: is there anything else that you need that you don't have in what we have written that will enable you to control things such as this? And he said no. And that was the answer that I, wanted to, hear. The chief can chime in. I know he's on. And if I have misstated that, then I want him to, make it clear. The only other thing that I'm not going to vote no against this because of this point that I'm going to make, but I certainly think that it has merit in terms of the fees, Jeff, that you showed in chart number PD-23. I feel that we should retain the current fees and increase the other fees that we have added. I think that part of compliance comes when your pocketbook is hit, and for $50, I am not going to vote no against this because I think that the bigger purpose is being served. But I certainly would support, if others would, seeing these fees move up. But otherwise, I think this is a wonderful thing. Sorry that we have to have it. Glad that we've been able to outsource a lot of this. And most of all, I'm, happy that the chief and his team will have the appropriate tools to manage these things, and that the city can be safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
David looks like he's frozen.
Sorry, I am having a freeze now and then. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff and staff, for a great report. To address a little bit some of the good neighbor ordinance issues, because to Mr. Caddis's point, and he raised some questions on behalf of opportunities for the police to be able to have leverage to perform should they be called into service again, and some of the fees. Hopefully Mr. Caddis and others did in fact see the fee schedule that Mendel alluded to. But I think that we need to share with the folks somewhere in this process, there is another piece coming, and that gives the leverage to be able to go in and address the problem when it's occurring, if it becomes an exceptional activity. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can I add to that?
Yes, please.
I think one of the unique features about this ordinance that I like a lot, that I think your city manager needs to get credit for, is the notion of incorporating into this ordinance this good neighbor policy. What created the major problem for our mansion house party, or one of the things that created a major problem for our mansion house party, is that the property owners were unreachable, unresponsive. They could have easily taken steps with Airbnb to cancel the reservation. This notion of a good neighbor policy who even though they're not physically present on the property, is a pretty novel idea. I understand that Adam got that idea from a sister city I know someone earlier in public comment complained that you copy something from another city. My reaction to that is, if it's working there, why wouldn't it work here? We adapt it to our needs. And I think that's the real strength of this ordinance. It's a velvet fist. It's a good neighbor policy. If you are a good neighbor and rent your property out for short-term rental in a responsible manner, you're going to have no problem with the police department or the city attorney's office. But if you're not prepared to be a good neighbor, then the gloves come off. And we're going to protect the integrity of our residential neighborhoods and the quiet enjoyment that all of the residents of Glendora are entitled to enjoy. So I think this is a particularly strong feature of this ordinance. And when we were doing some surveying around, we didn't even come across it. So I think Adam gets an attaboy for adding this feature into the ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Anything else, David?
No, thank you.
Thank you, David. Gary?
Nothing more to really add. I just want to give kudos to everybody that was involved in putting this together on an emergency basis. I think we've covered a little bit of everything. The one thing I did want to point out is to make sure everybody understands that these proposed fines are based on annual responses. So that first, second, third, fourth response is over a 12-month period based on the calendar year. So we could easily get somebody that is really causing havoc to get to that $2,500 level, and then that $2,500 fine can be incurred multiple times over a 12-month period. And that would put a big damper in anybody's business plan. So that's part of what it is, but great job to those involved in putting this together, and I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
Thank you. Just again, echoing what has already been said, thank you to everyone for all of the time and effort put into putting this together. And I think this is a great compromise. I know that there was discussion by some folks that we should, the council should decide not to allow any short-term rentals. And I think that's extreme. So I think this is a happy compromise, both for property owners and for the community to enjoy where they live. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. You know, I too want to thank everyone who put this together. It was a lot of work in such a short time. I think it's better to have this ordinance in place than it is to outright ban it. I believe we have more tools at our ready. I believe the police department has more tools, and we have a lot more mobility with that. I think it's well balanced as well. And so the question I have is that we have 3 city ordinances: duty to maintain public peace, license requirements, and definitions. Will those be updated if this gets approved?
Yeah.
Who said that? Is that yes?
Jeff was responding.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. So this ordinance tonight, all of the sections, I believe, of this ordinance will update the zoning code. It will update the zoning code to add definitions related to short-term rentals, and then it will also add regulations for the process for the permitting the use itself on residential properties, and then also adding regulations for the how short-term rentals are to be operated, the good neighbor policy that was discussed earlier, as well as the issuing of the permits. The portion of the for the fines and any changes to, well, the fines will come in October in a separate ordinance.
Well, Mr. Mayor, maybe I misunderstood your question, but property maintenance is unrelated to short-term rentals.
Well, duty to maintain public peace. That's 9.44.195.
Yeah, and Mayor, that's the nuisance property abatement. So any violation of this is considered a nuisance property. The 9.44 is where the city will, at its next meeting, staff will propose the increase in fines. It's included in the staff report, which is under the next steps.
And then 5.04.040, the license requirements, this will be added to it.
This references that change and any changes in the business license code, yes.
Okay, and then Jeff opined on the definitions that he'll have.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so and the I also want to echo what and extend what Mendel said about the fee structure. I do like the current fee that we have and just simply add 5 and 6 to it and move forward. My 2 cents moving forward when we have this discussion coming back on the fee schedule towards the end of the month. Yes, do we have any last questions from council? No. Madam Deputy City Clerk, you want to read the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The recommended motion then is to adopt by waive further reading and adopt by a 4/5 vote of the entire City Council urgency ordinance entitled An Urgency Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, amending the zoning code Title 21 and Title 5 of the Municipal Code to regulate the advertising and operation of short-term rentals within the City of Glendora, declaration of the urgency ordinance for this ordinance, and to authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with HDL to provide short-term rental program management. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Yes, I would move that.
I heard from Mayor Pro Tem Davis as a motion, Councilmember Thompson as a second. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to item number 13, new business, discuss and adopt a county management plan for the city of Glendora. I'd like to invite Support Service Supervisor Mark Archibald to present the staff report. Welcome, Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me. City Council members. My name is Mark Archibald, and I'm the Support Services Supervisor here at the Glendora Police Department. One of my roles at the PD includes managing code enforcement. I'm excited to share this much anticipated county management plan with you this evening. Next page, please. Staff is recommending the city follow a county management plan based on the United States Humane Society's model. Next page, please. The goal is to follow a humane model to ease fear by the community and reduce the number of human county conflicts. Included are several aspects to mitigate county interaction with the goal of coexisting with counties using education, behavior modification, and development of a tiered response to aggressive county behavior. Next page, please. Staff have drafted the county management plan utilizing best practices that have been put in place by Glendora and the surrounding communities. These best practices are authorized by U.S. Humane Society as being the most effective and humane methods of ensuring the safety of humans as they coexist with coyotes in the urban environment. Next page, please. The plan provides guidance to community members, businesses, and staff, city staff in managing coyotes in Glendora. The strategy for managing coyotes is based on balance of respect and protection of wildlife while prioritizing public safety. The strategy is comprised of the following approach: public education, reporting, response plan, enforcement of laws and regulations, and finally ensuring public safety by implementing appropriate responses to coyote behavior. Next slide, please. Education is the key to community members making appropriate decisions regarding their safety and that of their property and pets by decreasing attractants, reshaping coyote behavior through hazing, and creating reasonable expectations of normal coyote behavior. Next page, please. Coyotes are drawn to urban and suburban areas for the following reasons: food, water, access to shelter, and unattended pets. Next page, please. Community members are encouraged to use the yard audit checklist, which is Appendix D in the coyote management plan, as a tool to help recognize and remove attractants in their yards and neighborhoods. Next page, please. So we have a contact management sheet, and this is actually based off of the city manager. And thank you so much for helping with this. We have first here is green. It's a coyote sighting. If you have a coyote sighting, you just call the PD. We actually have a hotline set up as well as an email address set up. You can see on the screen here. Also on the website, you will find a coyote cacher, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. Next page, please. Yellow are for general inquiries, including yard audits, sick or injured coyote, not freely roaming, aggressive coyote threatening people or pets, or an attack on a pet. You contact Inland Valley Humane Society or SPCA, and the number is here on the screen during normal working hours as well as after hours. Next page, please. If there's a close encounter on a human or an attack on a human, you immediately call 911 and a notification will be made to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Next page, please. A detailed tier response has been developed to provide a mechanism for identifying and classifying different levels of human and coyote interactions. This education component helps community members identify what type of coyote interaction that they have had or are experiencing and who to contact to report that interaction. Next page, please. Green is observation level or sighting level green. It's a little higher level. You provide educational materials based on info on a normal coyote behavior, and it just goes down from there. Next page, please. Yellow is if you see a coyote resting in an area with people are present, coyotes entering a yard without pets, or coyotes entering a yard with pets. Next page, please. Level orange is a coyote entering a yard and injuring or killing a pet without people present, or a coyote biting or injuring unattended pets or pets on a leash longer than 6 feet. Next, please. Red, coyote following or approaching a person without a pet or stalking them. Coyote following or approaching a person or a pet. Coyote entering a yard or home with people and pets, no injury occurring. Coyote coyote biting or injuring an attended pet on a 6-inch leash or less. A coyote aggressive, showing teeth, back for a raise, lunging, nipping without contact, or ultimately a coyote biting or injuring a person. Next, please. Feeding wildlife substantially increases the likelihood of coyote activity in an area, creating a habituated coyote presence, resulting in increased coyote and human interactions. California law prohibits feeding wildlife. Furthermore, city staff enforces the city's health, safety, and the development of codes to ensure the proper upkeep of properties is achieved in order to reduce the presence of coyotes. Simple measures such as removing fallen fruit from or around fruit trees has proven to be effective at reducing or relocating the rodent population that coyotes feed upon. Next, please. These are the applicable codes from the state of California, County of Los Angeles, as well as City of Glendora that do provide legal authority for the enforcement. For the CCRs through state of California, it's under harassment of animals. You can see the codes here. For Los Angeles County Code, it's providing food for certain rodents or predator animals prohibited. And then there's 2 GMC Glendora municipal codes. One is feeding non-domesticated animals, providing food for certain rodents and animals prohibited. And finally, abatement of nuisances, premises maintenance of landscaping, which I know was mentioned earlier. Next, please. The current plan has been created with the guidance and direction from the California Fish and Wildlife and the Inland Valley Humane Society. Many, many thanks to them. Next, please. It is a recommendation of staff that the City Council reviews, discusses, and adopts the coyote management plan. Next, please. We are grateful for the attendance of subject matter experts from both California California Fish and Wildlife and Inland Valley Humane Society and SPCA. They are here to assist with any questions council may have on this item. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. I know the hard work that went into all of this.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring it to council. I know that we have Fish and Wildlife on with us. We also have Inland Valley Humane Society. So when I bring it back to council, know that we can direct some questions back to both agencies plus our own. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, I want to support this, and I will support this plan. I want to applaud you and Gary and our chief and Adam and Mark and everybody that has been a part of creating this plan. I think it's an excellent start, and it's something that we have needed to have. I do think that we need to be aware of the questions, and some of those need to be, I think, thought through and entertained within the plan. And I would certainly support approving the plan tonight and bringing the plan back in 6 months, having looked at some of the science that Steve had talked about, trapping, what are the benchmarks for success of this plan, even having a working group, as I believe Steve had outlined. Those questions, I think, need to be thought through. I don't know that I would be able to vote on that tonight. The one thing that a lot of people talked about was mange, and I know that in the briefing that David and I had today, that was brought up, and I learned something that I didn't know. And Chief, could you talk a little bit about the policy related to that, specifically to mange and how that is dealt with?
Yeah, of course, certainly. On our previous call, where we had a learning session with members of Department of Fish and Game and with Inland Valley, we learned that coyotes that are suffering from the skin condition mange, which is a mite, generally bacterial, creates a bacterial infection on the skin, and those coyotes can be treated. The treatment of those coyotes involves the trapping of a coyote with mange by a wildlife rehabilitation expert. That expert would trap the coyote, confine that coyote to a particular place, administer treatment to that coyote, and once that coyote was well and that mange was treated, and I don't know the time, you would have to we would have to consult with a subject matter expert on the call that's a biologist by trade. But that we did receive word that after treatment, that coyote would be brought back to the community from where it was trapped and released back into that same community. That was an interesting item that we all learned, and I think it's important to note. There's a lot of pictures on the internet and a lot of interaction both on Nextdoor and Facebook and other groups, and we get alerted to a lot of coyotes that are suffering from mange. And it's true. There's a lot of coyotes in our population, or at least there's an appearance of a lot of coyotes in our population in the city of Glendora that are suffering from some level of mange. I am not a biologist. I'm not a veterinarian, nor do I have any expertise in that. So in the event that we encountered a coyote that's suffering from something of that sort, we would rely on our animal or our wildlife experts to assess that coyote, determine whether it needs to be trapped and treated. But in any event, as long as the coyote received treatment and was made whole again, so to speak, or treated and responded favorably to treatment, that coyote would be released back into that same community from where it was trapped.
Thank you, Chief.
Mendel, if it's okay with you, can we bring in Rebecca Barbosa from
absolutely
Fish and Wildlife to help you with that?
Yes, please.
Rebecca?
Sure. What would you like me to respond on?
The mange?
Well, Yeah, what
Yeah, but what about mange?
what I think is that a lot of people think that if there's mange, that the animal should be eliminated. And what I've just heard and what I learned is that treatment of mange is done, and then the animal is brought back to where it was. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, and think that when something occurs like that, then we just eliminate it. And I don't know that that's really what occurs. So maybe you could enlighten us more there.
Right. Well, just because an animal has mange does not necessarily mean that they need to be eliminated. It also doesn't necessarily mean that they can be fully treated either. It really depends on the severity of the infection and the severity of any secondary infections that come on. A lot of times the animals die of dehydration, of secondary infection, of systemic infections. And there's no real way to treat them when they get that far gone. So sometimes, yes, they do have to be euthanized. Another issue is the fact that we have very limited wildlife rehabilitation facilities at our disposal. And I think when we had our discussion last week, the prior week, I had inspected a facility that was completely full. They had 7 coyotes in their care, and they were unable to take any more. So that's another problem, in that not every coyote is going to be able to be rehabilitated. And the third problem is you drop them off into the environment again. Well, those mites are still out there, so chances are they're just going to get reinfected. So it is a complicated situation. There's no easy answers, but in general, yes, they can be treated, but not always.
Yeah, and just one other point that I also learned today, and there's a lot of folks that they're pro and con. They want these animals gone, and then a lot want them here, and because this is where they are. But Adam, could you talk about what Torrance attempted to do?
So, one of the unique conversations, that we're having in Glendora with coyotes is really not that unique. There are lots of city councils across Southern California and state of California that have had conversations about coyotes. So one of the things Torrance did was implement a 5-month trapping plan. We, in talking with Torrance, spent about $70,000 on that plan, trapped 14 coyotes. And I think it's important to note that if you trap a coyote, there's no relocating that animal in another location. They are euthanized instead of relocating for issues. And I'm sure Fish and Wildlife would be more than happy to explain the rationale there. But the goal in the city of Torrance was to reduce the number of animals taken. And with the 14 coyotes that were trapped and euthanized, the city did not experience any reduction in the amount of small animals taken. So additionally, their police department had to hire another full-time staff member to run the program. So all said and done, it was about $175,000, $190,000 to run the coyote plan that talked about 5 months of trapping. There's currently a follow-up conversation there if they'll trap for an entire year instead, to see if they can further those objectives. But it's pretty expensive endeavor to trap coyotes with zero chance that it may actually work.
Yeah. So, that's why that I'm in favor of this plan. It's not a perfect plan, and it's not going to be, because what we all have to do is understand how to coexist with them, and common sense is a very important thing. And taking all of the tools that this plan has in terms of food and access points and all of that, and not giving them the chance to do some of the things that coyotes just need to do to survive. So I'm in favor of this, but I do think that in hopefully adopting this plan tonight, we can bring it back in 90 days or 6 months and reinsert and maybe tweak a little bit of this plan based upon some of the superb things that were said, the questions raised, the thoughts shared, and I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. David?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mark, and the rest of the staff for the great preparation to learn. I think part of that education, and we alluded to it just briefly, that part of that learn is we don't get to just trap and send them somewhere else. Laws say they have to stay in their playground. So there is no just make them go away unless we eliminate them. And then that becomes the trapping charges that Adam just shared with grand expense and little experience. So I don't think we're prepared to go that route. I do support the review in a few months just to see how are we doing. Do we need to adjust? Are we learning more? And hopefully we citizens can learn how to protect ourselves a bit so that our properties are not attractive. And let's have some success with this process. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Gary?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse with the mange and sick coyote conversation, but I'd like to hear from the experts. There's a concern of our residents that mange is contagious, that it could be passed on to their pets, that it could be passed on to the bigger coyote population or other wildlife that could exacerbate this problem. So, could somebody address what do we do when we see animals that are this sick? Who are we supposed to report those to? And what is the process that's going to happen? Because I understand that resources and funds are limited for this, but at some point, some sort of action needs to be taken. So I guess I'm just looking to Inland Valley, to Fish and Wildlife, to PD. What should our residents be doing when they see this on a regular basis? And many of them have spoken about it. Who wants to take that one?
I could start off. It's important that residents report the sick and injured animals to us so that we can assess the situation and try and find an alternative. Given the fact that, like I said, a lot of times, especially this time of year, the wildlife rehabilitators don't have the room. Then we're just left saying, well, we have to let nature take its course. Then that's where the city's management plan can come in to see, if there are other alternatives that you guys have approved of, i.e. the trapping and euthanasia of the affected individuals.
So Rebecca, you're the expert on this. So is there a danger to mange being infecting pets?
It's out there already. It's the mites that carry it, and those mites are out there. They're everywhere. So yeah, I mean, if people don't properly care for their pets and provide them with the medication to prevent the mites from attacking them, then there's a possibility that their pets can get the mange as well.
Okay, so just to be clear, they're not going to catch mange from a coyote, but they could get mange from the mites that cause the disease.
Either way, it's out there in the environment, or if they come in close contact with the coyote, then the mites could be transmitted over to the next animal.
Okay, I guess to ask it a different way, is this something that we should be concerned about for our pets with coyotes that are in our neighborhoods with mange?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and I make sure that I keep my pets' vaccinations and medications up to date because I live in a foothill community too. And that's the best thing that I can do for my pet is prevention.
Okay. I would like to hear from Inland Valley. One of the issues that our residents have shared with me a lot is that they make phone calls, they try to make reports, and they sort of get the runaround. They'll talk to Fish and Wildlife, who will say, call the city, and they'll talk to our police department, who says, contact Inland Valley. I know I've had some personal experience with Inland Valley on this, and so we're looking at Inland Valley to take a very active part in this. So if I could ask for, I'm not sure who's on here from Inland Valley, but if they could respond to how their staff is going to react when they get calls, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, Councilmember Boyer, we are actually in agreement with California Department of Fish and Wildlife in regards to the coyotes and their management. Trapping is not necessarily the fix-all for coyotes, and removing them is just inviting an opportunity for other coyotes to take their place, or for coyotes to overbreed to fill those voids that have been made in the area. So as far as phone calls are, I know that I spoke with Mark this week. Last week, we received a total of 1 phone call in regards to coyotes from Glendora residents. So we do encourage them to call us, and so that we can report it and know where the coyotes are and see if there is an issue that we can be dealing with, whether it is an individual that is feeding cats in their area, feeding wildlife in their area, that is attracting the coyotes to that specific region.
Okay, I appreciate that. I've got another question getting off of the coyote subject. What about other wildlife? I mean, what does the average resident do when they're having an issue with skunks or raccoons or any other animal that might be a nuisance to a particular neighborhood?
Again, we look at their neighborhood and their property. Do they have fruit trees? Are they picking up after the fruit trees? Do they have vegetable gardens and they're not removing the fruit that has come to the point where it is ripe? Are they leaving out pet food for their pets or for feral cats? But we will do an assessment on their property for them.
Okay, and do you guys do trapping at all of other wildlife, skunks or raccoons or anything?
We do education first and foremost, and try and deter trapping and find out why the animals are actually coming onto their property to begin with.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate it. Last question I had, because this has become a very emotional subject, and we understand that it is an issue that needs to be dealt with. But one of the things that I worry a little bit about is we take a look at somebody's definition of aggressive behavior. That could be interpreted by different people in different ways. And there's also the possibility of having people exaggerate or try to make an interaction worse than what it is in order to get responses. And it's important to know that that really is not helpful to the overall plan as we move forward with this. Matt, I don't know if you could address that real quickly, but if somebody makes a false police report, there's penalties involved. But what happens if we have people that are claiming that there's more aggressive coyotes when they just see a coyote wandering down the street?
Well, happy to bring everybody's attention to Appendix B. The primary focus for addressing that concern of yours, sir, is the education component. regardless of what the individual community concern is, we're going to dive into it and figure out where it's going to fit in there. One person's perception of a coyote interaction is not the same as the next person's perception of a coyote interaction. I live in a foothill community where I'm used to seeing them frequently and in my yard at times. My interactions with them are very different than, say, a normal person's interaction. However, related to the callers who made public comment about seeing a regular 4 or 6 in the neighborhood on a regular basis, their interactions are different than possibly somebody who's aged and gets startled by a coyote and perceives curiosity and crosses the line and assumes that it's stalking. So we're going to do a lot of work with that education component. One thing we haven't talked about yet, and it's because there isn't really the right time because of the COVID pandemic, but is the Wildlife Watch program, which is the neighborhood community engagement component that we're going to look forward to in the future. That's going to do a lot of work with teaching individual community members to assess what coyote behavior really fits into which category. And again, there's nothing to prohibit someone from making a report that's falsely inflated. It's just going to happen. It happens with regular calls for service for police response. It happens with code enforcement or community preservation, code compliance issues where, it presented as a very egregious thing and we get out there and it's just some trash cans and some weeds. But one person's perception is their own, and we're very cautious not to discount their perception of it and to take every complaint seriously. But we are going to take a lot of time after the fact to throw them into this education classification and show them where their interaction with that coyote finds itself in that tiered response.
Appreciate it. And then the last thing is, there were a lot of questions asked during the public comment. And I have to be honest, I started writing them down, but it was just like coming like machine guns. And so, Adam, what would be the process? Mendel mentioned the fact that it might be a good idea, excuse me, to take another look at this in a few months. But what would be the process? We adopt this tonight for us to come back and amend this. Do we have the ability to make minor amendments? And I would like to address those questions maybe at our next council meeting, just so we can get answers to the people that took the time to come to our meeting and actually ask the questions.
Yeah, so the item before council obviously is to approve the management plan, not predicated that staff, obviously if there's like an ministerial mistake, a grammatical error, we would fix it, but any major changes to the plan, substantive in nature, would come back to the council for evaluation. I think one of the important things to point out is that, the plan shows where we do receive information on coyote reports from Inland Valley through 911, through the coyote cacher, and that we would compile those once a quarter to show and highlight potential hotspot areas and educational efforts. Ultimately, the coyote management plan is a public safety tool. To have that agreement and to have the understanding that it requires working with the community, not just residents or not just business owners, but everyone. The coyotes will eat, avocados from avocado trees, and they find homes that have overgrown bushes and trees, and they're able to have a den in those areas. And similar to one of the callers, I also live on Mita Avenue and have seen one of the houses on my street that was cleared of a mess, and the coyotes on my area have since disappeared. So success largely is ensuring that there's a communication process with residents, that they may not like the answer that they receive, but at least they can get a hold of someone who can explain the rationale. But also, as we look in this in quarterly updates, it may be prudent to get through 2 or 3 of those quarterly updates so we can determine what that success looks like. But as it relates to the science behind things, honestly, there's no one on staff that's a biologist. That's not what we do. So we would rely on those experts at both the state level, Inland Valley, and other partners to help us look at the plan to ensure we are doing things in a thoughtful and meaningful manner. But any substantive changes would definitely come back before the city council for approval.
Okay, so in that case, it would probably be a good idea. And again, this is just a suggestion. I'd like to see those questions reviewed and come back at our next meeting with some answers, just to briefly address them. Some of them I think are answered in our plan. Some of them are not, and we may need to take a look at it in the future. And it's probably best that we take another look at this 6 months from now, because if it takes a council action to make changes, we'd like to make sure and try to make sure we take all of the changes into consideration when we review it again. So that's just my 2 bits. I appreciate the work that went into this. Thanks to everybody involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Karen?
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone else who's put a lot of time and effort in putting this plan together. And if we are going to review this again, I would suggest not sooner than 6 months, because we're still in that process of life transitioning. I know that after the trails had been closed for a while during the beginning of the pandemic, and then they reopened, when I went back to trails that I normally run or hike on, that in that respite time of not having people there, that the plants and the animals thought, hey, now I've got, space to take over. So I think also with the schools being closed and other activities out of the norm, that has probably thrown the animals out of kilter as much as it's thrown people out of kilter. And so they're going to have different patterns of behavior. So I would like to at least give the plan, a minimum of 6 months to see how that works, because I think as people begin to go back to some of their activities, that we'll see some changes as well. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. I did take a bunch of notes here. Maybe we get through a few of them in some shotgun approach here really quick. But before I do that, I sent to make part of our packet here an email thread from Dr. Quinn, which is supposed to, she's an expert in this field. But there's the last sentence she put on here, or last couple of sentences, there is no right or wrong answer for urban coyote management currently. There's not enough science to support multiple options, and this issue is highly sensitive. So I want to put that in context for us debating this, and everyone has a copy of that email thread. There was a question that came up is, when will the plan be live?
Yeah, so we've had 2 different versions of the draft report as we've gone through the changes on our website for the weeks preceding this meeting that we've pointed people to when they've called, just to give them an idea of the items we were contemplating moving forward. So that's on the police department's website and has been so for a while.
Is there a way that we can, while I go through this, someone can bring it up on the screen just to show everybody where it's at?
This is a PowerPoint presentation, Mayor, from the clerk's office, but we'd be happy to push that out afterwards.
Okay. All right. Another question was, will the data be transparent? I'm assuming on the quarterly reports, there's going to be some sort of report coming out. Can you explain that, or have
Chief?
Yeah, I'll address that. So we're gonna do a data pull from 3 different sources. Our call for service data, so that's any 911 or police related immediate response that comes in as a coyote response call. Those get logged. That's source number one. Source number 2 is data that comes from Inland Valley Humane. We get a monthly report. They're going to add coyote calls for service into that report. So that data pull will be in there. And then the third is the coyote cacher information, which is user-based. So that's community-based entries. So your average, or not to discount it, but your run-of-the-mill coyote interaction where you're driving to work at 5 in the morning, stopping to get a cup of coffee, and you run across a coyote that you've never seen before. That would be the portal for you for an entrance point to log that coyote sighting. We're going to pull from all 3 of those data sources. This will be Mark Archbold's in his shop. That data will get crunched into one source, and then we're going to turn on. We don't technically have it ready yet, but the behind the scenes technical advisors for our community dashboard on the police department website, we're going to click on a call for service tab, which is coyotes. And so that's going to bring up a 14 days of and a 14-day prior look. So a 1 month review of what calls for service are looking for. And then we can incorporate that into a Google Earth map so that people can see real-time data from month to month. And then paring that down, when we do get that quarterly data, we'll crunch those numbers and put it right on our website under the Coyote tab for a quarterly report. And that'll list locations, general locations, obviously not private residences, but general locations of tiered level of sightings, responses, and call tracking with a map data. Those are all things that can be done. It's going to require some staff time, and again, pulling from 3 different sources. But we're hoping that the community dashboard can do a lot of that automation for us.
And Mayor, really briefly, cityofglendora.org/wildlife will take you to the information.
All right, thank you for that. One of the questions was, who's the point of contact at the city for wildlife management?
Mark Archibald is the support services supervisor, who is the point of contact for the lead on this project. Included in the council agenda item and in the Coyote management plan is a dedicated phone line, which will have an automated information source, a message on there, and an ability to leave a message and an email address. Those messages or those reports that are reported there will be contacted back. We will return those phone calls to those individuals, and then staff here at the PD will take those reports and enter them into the data collection system.
Okay, and what was the community involved in developing the plan?
The community was involved by way of placing the draft plan on the internet under our police department wildlife page, which Mr. Raymond just provided that address. We haven't had any community forums on that topic. However, we have brought people to that webpage when they've inquired about our management plan. And I
would also add, Mayor, to piggyback on that, is we've talked with Inland Valley and the state. We've heard from several individuals that are on the call this evening in various capacities, and took a lot of what they've said also into account in drafting some of the items. One of the public comments this evening talked about the city of Brea, and while many of the plans in cities are different, the city of Glendora's proposed plan is a little more significantly robust, specifically in the area where we provide contact information and references for who to call and when.
Okay, and are there natural predators to the coyotes?
I think one of the interesting things that we learned in talking with Fish and Wildlife is the #1 threat to coyotes are vehicles, followed by poison.
And I believe Chief said that we not had any reports of any vehicles. That doesn't mean they haven't been hit.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, and I'm down to the last ones here. How do we clear out coyote dens in the city?
That's done through yard abatement or inspections. When one of the callers referred to an overgrown location on Bennett, obviously can't discuss an open code enforcement or community preservation case, but as a case example, if we come upon a property with overgrown grass or foliage or brush that is in a particularly target-rich environment, say the house is overgrown with lots of things in it, and it is adjacent to a flood control channel, which is a known route for coyote and other wildlife travel points. Community preservation officers can go to that property and ensure that compliance is met. We'll talk to the owners or the responsible parties of that property and handle it like any other property nuisance call, which is alert the resident to the problem, bring them into compliance by way of education, ensure that they follow through with their compliance, and if they don't, administer administrative fines to them to seek compliance going forward. That's what our plan is. That's what our plan continues to be. So it's complaint driven, and so that if anyone on this call or witnessing this on the internet has a property that they suspect is a known den location or something like that, a target location. And even the average homeowner, let's say you own a very large expansive property and the back half trails off down a hillside and you happen to see lots of coyotes, it might be time for a yard check. And that yard check could be done by wildlife professionals to come in and give you some mitigation strategies. And if it's not that, if it's a community member concerned about an overgrown or a den location, that's the time to reach out to that 852 number that we included in the plan, and that'll initiate a community preservation open case, and then we can address that item.
Okay, so the next question is going to be, it's from Stephen. He said that hazing doesn't work anymore with habituated coyotes. And I know that the Inland Valley has tools that you can hook up to your hose and different things and rollers and fences and all that. So perhaps Inland Valley can talk about the tools that they have for the audit plus the tools that they have, and talk about the hazing not working for habituated coyotes. Anyone want?
Yes, Mayor. There is a scarecrow system that attaches to your hose, and it is motion activated and will not only keep coyotes away from your property, but other wildlife and or cats away from your property, and maybe your wife, you know, who happens to wander in its path.
Oh.
So how do
Jim, can you also, I know that Mark had reached out to you about a deterrent whistle that is available. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yes, we also provided the city with coyote whistles to help in the hazing process to keep coyotes at bay and to disrupt their normal activity that they are currently doing in their neighborhood.
So James, how do our residents get these tools?
We have the coyote whistles already at City Hall. We dropped those off to Mark last week. And then as far as the scarecrow, you would be able to purchase those on your own. We do not provide those, unfortunately. They're about $75 a piece through Amazon. You can get them, and you can get them at feed and fuel stores or hardware stores. But Amazon is your best bet to retrieve those.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add, we have the whistles here at the PD, and during working hours, currently it's Tuesday and Thursday. I believe next week we go to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, normal working hours, sir.
Okay, so they just go to the front counter and ask for one?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you for that, Mark. So wrapping this up, I know that we have Mr. Dave Dodge on here and also Kent. They've both been extremely helpful. Kent, would you want to give us an overview of your review of the final product that we have for our coyote management plan, please?
I think that the city's you got a good start. These plans are through Wildlife Watch, and we encourage you right now where the city is in your stage of process, because we coach so many cities. You're in the beginning phase right now, where we hope, like the chief was saying, that maybe we can get more involved in Wildlife Watch because of the accountability. It holds the state accountable, the city accountable. So the residents realize that we are working on this from a team approach. As these things come up, we're going to address them. And that's why Wildlife Watch is so effective, because of the flexibility that it allows into making changes in plans. Obviously, it needs to go through council for review, but our objective right now, and we've met that, is for us to get together collectively as agencies and put all our heads together and work on this so we can best meet the needs of our residents. That's we're on from a starting point. We're right there. You've got some excellent people in here that are following this, and I believe you're on the right track. There's some areas that probably are going to need some tweaking. There were some great questions that Steve brought up, and we need to address those questions. Who's going to enforce the regulations? When is it going to start? Okay, these types of things where the residents, they want to hold us accountable. And Wildlife Watch is developed so that we can show the citizens that, yes, we listen to what you're doing, what you're saying, what your concerns are, and we are responding to them, just as you have done here. But we're in here, we're in it with you guys. We've got an excellent team here, and we're looking forward to move forward.
Thank you for that, Ken. Janice, do you have any remarks you'd like to make? She's muted. While we're waiting for that.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you and the council and the wonderful comments by the Chief of Police. I think you guys are certainly headed in the right direction. And as Kent said, we are here to support you and your city and the community and, tackling the wildlife issue and mitigate the circumstances that you guys are going through.
Thank you so much, Janice. Dave Dodge, do you have any remarks you'd like to make before we move forward?
Muted.
Yeah. Staff, can we unmute Dave?
He's unmuted. David, Councilmember Friedendahl, can you hear us?
No.
I'm sorry, David, you're muted.
David Dodge. Okay. So since we're not going to probably hear from Dave, we'll go ahead and move on then. Deputy City Clerk, do you want to request a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, the recommended motion, here we go, is to adopt the Coyote Management Plan for the City of Glendora. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I understood that there was maybe an amendment to the motion to have a 6-month look back.
We can add that to the motion then to return back to council in 6 months for a report.
Karen, will you amend your motion?
One point of clarification on that motion, since we're putting together these reports once a quarter, we won't have 2 quarters worth in exactly 6 months. It'll take a little longer than that.
Yeah, and I would prefer to err on this side of a little bit longer just to allow for a chance to see how this works.
That's fair enough, but we need to put a date out there certain.
Mr. Raymond?
By June of 2021.
So moved.
Does that work for everyone else?
That'd work for us at staff because we get a quarterly assessment in there and see, let us exercise our muscles in this program and work through all the kinks.
Perfect. Elvia?
I'll second.
Thank you. That was a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Davis, second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I will now take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson. Councilmember Thompson.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes. 9.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to council and staff items. Mendel, do you have any closing remarks?
No, everything's good.
Great. Thank you. David?
No, thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, I've been thinking about, the technology disruptions that we are dealing with. They're becoming an even bigger issue on a pretty regular basis. The issue that happened with the Historical Society, that was being hosted by the library. So that's something that happened on our watch, at the city. And so I would like to request that we get an update as to exactly what Glendora PD has the ability to be able to investigate, as well as from our technology guys, as to make sure that we have all the tools in place to try to protect us. We've had a couple disruptions on council meetings. They've been relatively minor, but this is something that is going to continue to happen. And I know that there are companies out there that can do forensic research on computer systems and trace something back to an IP address and then find an address. And, you know, those types of things can happen, but I don't know if we have the ability to do that, if we have a company that we partner with to do that, or if we just ignore these issues. And so I'd like to get an update at a future meeting as to exactly how we do address these types of things, and to find out if we have the equipment, the tools, the software, whatever is necessary to protect the city of Glendora system as much as possible. And if we don't, and we think it's important, I think we might need to take a look at our budget to see about making some adjustments to make sure that we have those types of protections moving forward. This is going to continue to be a problem. And I think this is just the beginning of some of the things that are happening. So I don't know if anybody would support that request, but I would like to request that we have not, we don't need to put a time limit on it, but just on an upcoming agenda to get a report from PD and from our IT guys of exactly what we have the ability to do and how we can protect ourselves from that.
Gary, I would support and second that if you need it.
Okay, I appreciate it. And then we can talk offline about what that might look like, but I do think it's something that we need to address sooner rather than later. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Well, thank you, Gary. Karen?
Nothing further.
All right. Adam?
A special thanks to staff. There were 3 pretty significant items on this evening's council, from short-term rentals to coyotes to the strategic plan. And that represents thousands of staff hours and lots of community partners weighing in, and time spent by the city council as well, providing insight to some of the draft documents. So not every council meeting has such substantial items, but tonight's did, and we look forward to it. And we know the 27th will also have some pretty significant items. So just appreciate everyone hanging in there with us, and especially given all the crazy circumstances and work related hoops that we're having to jump through with the COVID pandemic, that just my sincere appreciation to staff for keeping their foot on the gas and working a ton of overtime to make this magic happen.
Agreed, Adam. Thank you. Bill?
All I have is to report out from closed session, if you're ready for that, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I'm going to ask you if there's any other staff who would like to make an announcement or say anything. They're bashful as usual. So I'll request our city attorney to read us out a closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. With respect to the closed session agenda items on tonight's agenda, there were 2 matters of pending litigation to which the city is a party. The first one is Wiles versus the city of Glendora. It is a workers' comp claim. The council authorized the compromise of that workers' comp claim in the total amount of $35,687.50, payable in $230 a week until that balance is paid off. With respect to the pending litigation involving the code enforcement case involving the Mansion House Party, Glendora versus CAO. I don't know how to pronounce that Chinese name, and I apologize. We're pleased to report that the Orange County, or the Los Angeles County Superior Court, has granted a preliminary injunction prohibiting the short-term rentals of this property. With respect to the one matter of exposure litigation, the so-called Hicks Trust property, the council unanimously authorized the city manager to execute a tolling agreement following review and approval of the same as to form by the Director of Administrative Services. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bill. We are adjourned at 9:52. Good night, everyone.